I know you and I have a deep disagreement about what's happening with the trans issue. And I really see this as the women's rights issue of our time. Many of my fellow women see it that way as well. I have a daughter, and I'm very concerned about what's going to happen to her if things keep going the way they have been under the Biden-Harris administration. Let's just start with what's being done to children and how we are giving them puberty blockers and cross-sex hormones and actually chopping off healthy body parts and pretending that a child can give, quote, informed consent to any of that. Do you support it?
Well, let me start with high principles. I think that we're a kind people. We believe in treating other people with respect. And a lot of trans kids who are bullied in school, who are harassed, I'm sure you'd agree that that's wrong. And so maybe we can start with a principle that every person, regardless of whether they're trans or not, needs to be treated with respect and kindness and love. That's whether that you come from the Hindu faith like me or the Christian faith, or whether you just believe in American ideals. Those are basic principles. I do believe that those decisions should be between a person, their doctor, and their family. Now, if they're a minor, they need to make sure that their parents are consenting and on board, because those are very significant medical decisions. They're often very painful and difficult decisions. But let's look back at this ad that the Trump campaign has been running.
We'll get there. We'll get there. Now, stay with me if you would, if you don't mind, because there's a lot to go through.
Sure.
Now, I agree with you, no bullying and be kind, 100%, especially when it comes to children. However, those terms get used to try to force injuries on young girls. That, Riley Gaines was told to be kind and that it would be bullying for her to stand up for her rights. The girls on the UPenn women's swim team were told that it was unkind to not want an intact male, Leah Thomas, on their team, and that the problem was them and their own psychology if they didn't want to get naked in front of him and then go out there and race. Those terms should not be exploited to take advantage of women and girls and their natural empathy, which they bring to virtually every situation. And so let's just go back to what's happening with children, though, because a child cannot consent. A child cannot consent to get a tattoo under a certain age. They cannot. A parent cannot take the child into a bar and say, I consent with my child for you to give her a vodka martini, because the law recognizes that there are inherent dangers to children and that they themselves cannot consent to the damage that could be done to them by this procedure. That's where puberty blockers into cross-sex hormones and chopping off healthy body parts falls. Can you defend it?
Well, I think that parents need to be able to have a say. I think that's the law in California. You can correct me if I'm wrong, but my understanding is that the law is that if you are a minor, you need not only a doctor, but your parents' consent before taking on any of these medical
I agree.
procedures.
I agree, although more and more states are saying now you don't. Minnesota, you can do it without your parents, thanks to Tim Walz. But even that was even too much for Gavin Newsom to say, the parents shouldn't be involved. But my point to you is, parents, how can a parent take an 11 or 12-year-old and say, I am going to make sure that you never have sexual pleasure again in your life? This is not controversial. If you go puberty blockers into cross-sex hormones, you will never achieve orgasm, ever. How can a parent say, I consent to that for my 11-year-old? They don't even know what an orgasm is. And I'm sorry to raise something so graphic, but this is what was being debated by the experts within the WPATH. Like, there were experts who were expressing real concern, saying, I don't think a kid can actually consent to a lifetime of no sexual pleasure. And they decided to run from even disclosing any of this. They just said, let's just run from this, because people won't support these procedures if they know this. Like, that's child abuse, Ro.
Well, for the trans parents who I know and who I've had these conversations with, and there may be a handful, say that a lot of times, first, it's not usually at 11 or 12, it's usually at 13, 14, 15. They say that these are often very, very painful discussions. These are difficult discussions. They don't just jump to surgery or the most extreme, that's sort of the last resort, that there is a lot of conversation that takes place with the child, with parents, with the medical professionals, with psychologists, to decide what is the best course. And I guess that my view is I trust the American family. I trust American doctors. I trust them to make those decisions, very difficult decisions. And I don't think politicians should be dealing with this. And I wish we could just find a way to find common ground on this so we could talk about how we bring manufacturing back, how we bring prosperity for families, how we make sure America leads over China, and how we make sure we're the greatest country and remain the greatest country in the world. I think that's what most Americans want us talking about. They want us to find common ground here in a way that can respect difference. And look, the people who, I would not say that people who have differences of opinion on this are unkind. I think that we should not have censorship. And one of the reasons I've come on your program, I come on Fox News, I think we need to have an exchange of ideas, and we need to have free expression ideas, civil exchange. But I wish there was a way to move forward on these issues with some grace, because that's what this country needs.
I don't disagree with anything you said in the back half of that answer. However, it's a hard no to the ongoing abuse of children. For me and millions of others now, this is becoming a massive issue in this campaign and nationally and with women and with moms everywhere. And I guarantee it's soon coming to a district near you. We cannot cut off healthy body parts from children who are incapable of consenting to that, and they are not medically necessary. A parent should not be in the position of saying that's okay. Parents are not allowed to consent to the torture of their children, to the sterilization of their children. Ro, puberty blockers and cross-sex hormones usually, almost in all cases, results in sterility. Sterility. Forget chopping off body parts. Everybody makes it sound like it's a nothing. It's much more than a nothing. Yes, puberty blockers start young. They can start as young as 11. When puberty starts, that's when you give it to a child. So that you go right from those into the cross-sex hormones, and then your sexual pleasure is done, and so is your ability to ever have a child. That's before they take out one scalpel. How can you support it? And by the way, just the second point, the medical community has been co-opted. They have been told by their bodies that govern them that the only acceptable standard is to affirm. And therefore, we're seeing child after child go in there and not get counseling about the parent's divorce, the bullying that may have happened because she was overweight, discomfort she's having because she's a natural girl going through girl puberty. All those things that they will get past. They will get past if only someone does not intervene. And so the medical community cannot be trusted, Ro.
Well, that's where one of the places where we may have disagreement is I do think that if you have counseling, if you have thoughtful psychologists, if you have thoughtful doctors, and if you have parents involved, that I trust the family and the doctors to make the right decision. Now, I will say, and maybe you would concede this, that there are people who genuinely need a gender transition. I mean, there always have been historically. I mean, do you agree with that? That there, in certain cases,
it is a very. Not only do I understand this, but I have this in my own family. This is not about me disliking trans people or denying that there are some people who suffer from general gender dysphoria. However, it is an infinitesimally small amount of the population. 99% of those cases are men, and they know it from the time they're 2. And this is not something, what's happening right now, for example, with girls on high school campuses is a social contagion. It's a social contagion that's been documented by Lisa Lippman at Brown, others like Abigail Schreier, Wall Street Journal reporter, in her book, Irreversible Damage. And what we are doing, rather than entertaining that, is having from the top down psychologists and psychiatrists being told by their industries they must affirm any expressed gender confusion or possibly face loss of their license and worse. And so you are getting yeses to girls who are a clear no, and then they're medicalized and surgicalized in a way that they can never recover from. I want to play for you Chloe Cole, who is now what they would call a detransitioner, to whom this happened. And to her parents were fooled as well by the medical community, not by Chloe. Watch.
Pretty much every doctor, every physician, and every psychologist I've had was affirming. They told my parents, less than 1% of people regret transitioning, and they never presented any other options. And they even told them that, were I not to go down this route, then I would be at risk of suicide, which I wasn't even suicidal by that point.
Upon which you based decisions to actually have surgeries and take dramatic steps to change your gender.
Yes. Last year, I I reached out to my surgeon to report that not only that I had regretted my mastectomy, but also that I was having complications from it. I mean, all I could really get with him was about a 5-minute call over Zoom. And the whole time it felt like he was being very dismissive. And that was the last time I trusted anybody on the team that helped me to transition.
She was 15, Ro. They gave her a double mastectomy, and she is not alone. Can't you see this needs to stop?
Look, my heart goes out to her. That's awful. That's an awful story. And obviously, she was not given the proper advice. She was not given the proper information. And I think that there should be strong regulations on making sure that doctors are being objective, that counselors are being objective, that the patient and the families are being centered in getting the responsible choices before them and the consequences of their decisions. And this is something that is a very, very difficult decision. And most people who I know, I mean, the few trans families that I know, it's very, very painful, the conversations. They don't take these things lightly. So if there is, because we started with what could be common ground, one place there may be common ground in this issue could be how do we make sure that the doctors and psychologists involved are really making sure that they're providing full information, transparent information, and centering patient choice.
Well, what's happening now is that they're being accused of doing conversion therapy on these kids if they explore any issue other than gender dysphoria, and therefore they don't. They just affirm. It needs to be mandated. They need to be forced to not punish doctors who want to have a full exploration of what a child's issues are. But we have to do what Sweden and most of Scandinavia and the UK has done, which is to ban puberty blockers and cross-sex hormones for the children, not to mention surgical. Why should Scandinavia be ahead of us? They're as left as they come, Ro. They're ahead of us on this, saying all the studies, the CAST report, no good has come from it. There is no proven medical benefit from any of this, from the puberty blockers or cross-sex. We've fallen into a social contagion here, and we are sacrificing our kids like lambs to the slaughter. I'm sorry to ask a question and move on. You can answer it if you want, but I want to ask you about boys and girls sports.
I want you, Megyn, to cite Scandinavia to also support Medicare for all and free childcare and some of the other parts of Scandinavian investment in human.
I know. Listen, I spent June over there learning about all of this, but this is an issue. This is about life and death for children. So right now, this is my issue. I'm a mom. Somebody else, I'm sure, is fighting the Medicare stuff.
I appreciate. Look, I appreciate. We obviously have a disagreement in that I don't think it should be banned. Is to be clear, I think that there needs to be regulation. But I appreciate that we can have a difficult conversation civilly without a fear of engaging in this kind of conversation and without name calling. And the reality is, on this and other issues in America, there are deeply divided opinions, and we have to figure out how, not just in the media, but with our neighbors, with our friends, with our communities, to have more real, honest conversations so we can try to find out where we agree, where we disagree, where there can be common ground.
With the holidays approaching, here's a gift to make your loved ones feel special: Cozy Earth. This year, wrap your family in ultimate comfort and enjoy peaceful nights, starting with the right sheets. Cozy Earth's bamboo sheet set offers everyday luxury everyone will love. It's the gift of unparalleled comfort, making every night a serene escape. For holiday pajamas, Cozy Earth's women's bamboo pajama set and men's pajamas are must-haves. They're stylish, super soft, and perfect for cozy mornings or lazy evenings by the fire. What sets Cozy Earth apart? Their temperature-regulating fabrics keep you cool and cozy, plus they offer a 10-year warranty, so these gifts will last for many holidays to come. Wrap the ones you love in luxury with Cozy Earth. Head to CozyEarth.com/MK and use my code MK for up to 40% off. Just go to CozyEarth.com/MK. If you get a post-purchase survey, tell them you heard about Cozy Earth from Megyn Kelly. Thanks so much for watching. If you like what you just saw, hit the subscribe button for more clips and full episodes.